radiance that is coming towards the stage from each one of you. You're all ignited, it's like the fire in the belly is ignited. So thank you for being so open, being so generous with your love. And because you're an awesomely fantastic audience, we're going to let you meet diplomats who are reimagining and restructuring the world with love, and wait for it, and intuition. We're talking about diplomats leading with intuition. This is a conversation that may not have happened before in our history. So we're making history as we speak, session by session. But at this moment, please join me in welcoming very special speakers who are amongst us already. To begin this conversation, I'm going to invite the global chairperson of the All Ladies League and the Women Economic Forum, a lady who leads with much aplomb, with strength and simplicity. Dr. Harbeen Arora. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for our sister in charge. Welcoming Her Excellency, the Ambassador of the US of A to Slovenia. Please put your hands together in welcoming Her Excellency Lydia Blanchard. Not just a diplomat, but also a humanitarian. Just a few minutes ago, Lydia was taking me through the work that she has been doing through her nonprofit organization for years at end. While she is a diplomat for the world, but she is a humanitarian at heart, working in India, working in various parts of the world, connecting women, connecting impoverished people worldwide. Thank you for you. Thank you for you too. Welcoming the Ambassador of the Republic of Turkey to India, it's an honor to be joined by Her Excellency Esen Altug. Please put your hands together. For the Turkish Ambassador. A privilege to be joined and representing the Great Britain. Please join me in welcoming the Honorable Ambassador, British Ambassador to Slovenia, Her Excellency Sophie Honey. Lady of diverse and multifarious talents, working on various issues in Israel, in occupied Palestinian territories, Lebanon, Jordan, and the Middle East peace process. You are remarkable in the work you do. Thank you for being with us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mansi. Thank you, Sasha, for curating this beautiful panel with great women in diplomacy, welcoming representation from the United States of America, as well as Turkey and the UK. It's interesting, I was thinking, we are in Slovenia, which is part of the European Union, and there's also Turkey here, which is going to be or wanting to be a part of the European Union, and we also have the UK, which just said, no, I don't want to be part of the European Union. So it was just interesting to see that. Without much ado, I'm not going to take more time over here, so that time is to the excellencies on this panel. panel, but just sharing a little bit about how you could help us with the Women Economic Forum. We have a Mission Million 2022. So through the diplomacy and the work that you do, if you could carry the message with whoever you meet in your countries, in whichever countries you are posted with, that please, if there are amazing women and there are women to be included and you don't know where to start internationally to connect them, we are there at all times. So whenever you meet a woman, please think of us. Keep a big place in your heart for the Women Economic Forum and for our Mission Million. Thank you so much. I welcome you all.
If we could have the privilege of having the sharings and insights of the ambassador, Her Excellency of the USA to Slovenia. Welcoming Lydia Blanchard.
Thank you so much for having me here. I wanted to explain how I got here because my whole process of getting to Slovenia started with just being intuitive and listening to my heart. So without this whole process, I actually wouldn't be here today. So first of all, I got married at 19 and supported my husband of 20 to go to school because neither one could support two of us going to school. So I started out educating my husband first. Then from there, we were able to, after about 10 more years, I quit my job and started school, and I was able to get my education, and he supported me. So that was how we had to start out, and it was atypical because most parents pay for their children's education in the U.S., but both of us were raised in an atmosphere that our parents couldn't really afford to do that, and so we both did it on our own. Then with that, we moved we decided that we were going to start our own business. So we started out at a young age being entrepreneurs, and the business quickly escalated. And so that in itself was an intuitive decision, because how many young people decide, oh, okay, we're going to start our own business? And it was a good time in the U.S., and it just escalated. And so during that time period that our business was doing amazing, our oldest son died. And with being a parent that has lost a child, you start thinking differently about what you've done, what you can do, and how you can achieve different goals. Because in my mind, I felt like that there was more to life than our business and what we were doing in the state of Alabama. And we weren't bad. We just, had not taken that step out of the box to be global. And so I looked at my husband and said that I wanted to start a nonprofit, and because we had someone visit our church. And so we, within a year, started a nonprofit and started working in Malawi, Africa first. And with the nonprofit work, it wasn't easy because people were saying, look, we know you've lost a child. Why don't you step back and wait and not do anything right now? And I just knew that I was doing the right thing because I was going to be starting the nonprofit, that this was something, a vision that I had, a feeling in my heart and in my head that I was going to do, and it didn't matter what my friends said. I had family members that weren't supportive. I had friends that were not supportive, and I still kept pushing through and putting the horse blinders on, and just not listening to others, but listening to what I felt, which, that I think that's what this discussion is about. And so I pushed through that and started my nonprofit work and started working in Malawi, Africa first, and then ended up 15 other countries. But with that, I saw a need in Malawi, Africa, and I thought, how can I meet this need? And the need was something bigger than I could handle on my own. I needed a group, a team. I needed DC. I'd never in my life worked in DC. I decided to hire someone, another female, to help me navigate through DC and learn how to get in front of the right people for my initiative. My initiative was higher education in Malawi, Africa. The men, most of the congressional men said, this cannot be done. It's never been done before. We like your pie-in-the-sky dreaming, but it's really not practical because the U.S. government's never funded a peaceful country like Malawi for higher education. I pressed through. I pulled in all the right team. It was a group of women on Capitol Hill that believed in me, believed in the initiative. They were like-minded. They were concerned with orphan care, adoption issues, and certainly Africa was popular at the time with all congressional members. So it was not just females of one party either. It was when you can pull females together that are, in this country would be multi-parties, but, a bipartisan relationship in the U.S., you can make things happen and move the ball, even though other people think that that ball can't be moved. So with the help of a bunch of female on Capitol Hill, I was able to secure funding for Malawi, Africa, for higher education with just pushing through and believing in what my heart was saying, and it worked. And can't tell you it was easy, but I kept saying to myself, no pain, no gain. I was spending quite a bit of money, practically living in D.C., but in my heart, it was going to happen, and it did happen. And because of that pushing through, and I told my team today when we were discussing this, I said, I really literally felt like I was locking my jaw into a mission, a vision that I had, and no one was going to stop me at that point because I really believed in my heart what I was doing was the correct thing, and it was no stopping me and then the group of women as well. And so I attribute my success to powerful women on the Hill. And 2 weeks after the election of our president, one of the congressional members that I worked with that was a female called me and said, would you come meet with me tomorrow in D.C.? And she had done this before, to discuss some things. And I said, sure. And I just assumed it was my initiative. And I got there, and she leaned in and said, I would like to support you if you would be willing to apply for a position with this president. I was stunned. And so it's a female that saw, that as a female we can pull together. And I had never even thought of applying for a position, but then I said, let me go home and think about it and discuss it with my family. It didn't even take a day. I said, sure, and so I started filling out the paperwork. But I'm just saying, it went from one female to another on the Hill that partnered, and then a female that called me that believed in me. So I do believe in the power of the female intuition and the female partnership, and I look forward to working with this wonderful country that I've become to love and keep that ball rolling in this arena and others as well. And thank you so much for this opportunity to speak to you and to partner with you as well. Of course, India is close to my heart, and I just love being here in this wonderful country. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Her Excellency Linda, for your beautiful sharing, which reminded us that when you come to the end of what you know, you actually come to the beginning of what you can sense. So your journey was such a beautiful celebration of pushing through, but pushing through with resilience, pushing through with so much grace, that has the power to, like Harbeen says, to cut through anything. So thank you for that beautiful journey sharing. Thank you, Linda. And now we travel to a mystical and a magical place through the eyes of Her Excellency Esen Altug, the ambassador of the Republic of Turkey to Slovenia. Welcoming you. It's an honor.
Thank you. Dear participants, dear Dr. Aurora, dear colleagues, good day to all of you. As Ambassador of Turkey in Ljubljana, I am pleased to address the plenary of the Women Economic Forum, and thank you for inviting me to address the ambassadors' panel discussion on this very important subject. As a woman ambassador, I attach really great importance to the inclusion of women in politics, diplomacy, social, economic, and cultural life. And we need to have more room for women's voices in shaping the agenda for sustainable development, human security, and peace. As some of you may know that, in fact, the appearance of women in diplomacy is relatively a new phenomenon in the diplomatic history. First women diplomats appeared after the First World War. And in most countries, it was legally banned for women to enter diplomatic service until 1950s. And now I am very proud to mention that in Turkey, we were allowed to enter the diplomatic service in 1932. Yet, even after 1950s, there were lots of legal and social barriers for female diplomats. Even some of our prominent and worldwide known male colleagues in those times used to say that it is impossible to have babies and a diplomatic career at the same time. But now, today, as a mother of a university student daughter, I am very proud that this saying has been proven wrong. The real appearance of women in diplomacy is just a matter of last couple of decades. I just want to mention here the United Nations Security Council resolution calling for more women participation in diplomacy, but men still remain largely overrepresented in diplomacy. Statistical data show that today almost 80% of ambassadors are men. I believe that the increasing influence of women in the world diplomacy will have positive reflections on peace and stability. Today, like all concepts, we have a new notion of diplomacy. Traditional diplomats have been described as individuals authorized to represent a state in its relations with other states, but this basic understanding is changing now. We are witnessing the birth of a new born of diplomacy. All diplomacy was mostly bilateral and secret, but now this new diplomacy is more multilateral and public. Because of this change, new terms arise such as public diplomacy, economic diplomacy, cultural diplomacy, and digital diplomacy. In this new age, which deals with new problems like multilateralism, climate change, prevention of conflicts, migration, we need women participation really more than ever. I believe that women possess more intuition, or let's say sixth sense, compared to men. Empathy is more common in women. It flows naturally because of our biology. This ability certainly helps us performing diplomatic duties negotiations. Emotional intelligence is an asset in conducting difficult negotiations, finding common grounds, and developing mutually beneficial solutions. Yet, I want to make a clarification. Of course, intuition doesn't help alone. Diplomats should also need personal experience, proper training, and of course, experience. So a female perspective should gain more influence in international relations and diplomacy. And for that to happen, first of all, we need to increase the number of women diplomats. I am particularly very happy to see the growing number of women diplomats in Turkey. At present, 35% of the diplomats are women, and the number of female ambassadors has reached to 65, and 40 of them are serving abroad across Europe, Latin America, Far East, and also hardship posts in Africa. Turkey conducts an enterprising and humanitarian foreign policy, and I believe that female diplomats have more strength and creativity in the sense of empathy. This brings success in humanitarian challenges which surround our world more than ever. Today's diplomacy obliges us to dedicate more of our work to the challenges in the field rather than in our offices, especially if you pursue a humanitarian foreign policy. We should be also the role models of younger generations. In this context, I want to mention Slovenian Foreign Ministry's Young Ambassadors Project for Mentoring Program, of which I myself is a part with my other female colleagues. I find such initiative very useful, and I am very happy to meet very talented Slovenian women in politics, academia, in social life, so I wish them also a big success in the future. I never felt being a diplomat, was harder for a woman than a man, and I do not believe that men have the upper hand in diplomacy. In concluding, my message to women is, have self-trust in yourself, believe in your strength and capabilities, try to be a source of inspiration, and your determination will overcome any obstacles. Thanks again for all of you for your patience and for the organizations. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Her Excellency Esin Altug, thank you for taking us on that beautiful journey to Turkey, which is at the crossroads and a melting pot for not just Asia, not just Europe, but the Middle East, Africa, the Balkan. So to represent a perspective so enriching, especially coming from the country that you come from, it's very interesting. And you spoke about the birth of a new diplomacy, the birth of a new vocabulary in diplomacy. And I think that's very insightful, because we are witnessing a time where diplomacy is moving from secrecy to a profound opening. And you all sitting here are an absolutely reverberating example of that opening, of that sharing, of that communication. So thank you for representing a really important time in our history. Thank you, all of you. I'd like to continue this continental conversation. I'd like to invite Her Excellency Sophie Honey, British Ambassador to Slovenia. Welcoming Her Excellency.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for the invitation to join you today. It's wonderful to be here with such an esteemed group of women, and I spot a few men as well. It's a great honor to join you and to build on what Linda and Esin have said, who are both great friends of mine. The thoughts that I wanted to share with you today are really my feeling that emotional intelligence is vital in professional life. Of course, it's a vital part of our personal lives as well. Now, because I'm a physics graduate, I had to check the definition of emotional intelligence. So this is what I found out this morning. This is a good Harvard definition of EQ. The level of your ability, can I just adjust that a bit? Okay. The level of your ability to understand other people, what motivates them, and how to work cooperatively with them, bringing in self-awareness, motivation, empathy, and social skills. So from my perspective, emotional intelligence is a vital element of leadership roles, but also of any role in the workplace. And I think that emotional intelligence is not just the preserve of women. Maybe we have better gifts in this regard. That's a whole other debate, which I won't get into. But I think it's not just the preserve of women, but I do think that as we're on this very positive path, which we're still traveling to see greater gender diversity in leadership roles across the board, whether that's in diplomacy or in business, I think that greater representation of women in the leadership space has got us collectively to realize, men and women alike, to realize more how important emotional intelligence is. And I want to give two examples of why it's very important to me in my role, and then tell you a little bit about my story. And I think the short version of it is that from being a physics graduate, through my professional life, and also particularly over the last 5 years, have really strengthened in my belief that this is such an important area. I started from quite a different point. So the two elements of emotional intelligence that are really important to me in my current role are both in terms of leading a team, fantastic team that I have at the British Embassy. And I really think that understanding other people, wanting to create an environment which people can be themselves, where they want to come to work every day, where they have positive social relationships, where they enjoy being, and it's not that, oh God, I've got to go to that work today, I think that's a really important part of leadership, and creating an environment where people can grow and develop their own skills as well as giving a lot. And that's quite different from a sort of traditional, more hierarchical and more old-fashioned sort of direct and control view of leadership. And that's very much my view. I think that creates a happier workplace and just a much more positive environment. And I think emotional intelligence is really important to that. And then the other elements where emotional intelligence is really important to my role as a diplomat is the external part of my role, talking to people outside the embassy, which is obviously a really crucial part of what I do. And why is it important? Because diplomacy isn't just about transmitting the messages of the British government. It's about understanding how others might see us, understanding what their perspective might be on an issue that I'm trying to explore with them. And emotional intelligence and curiosity about their perspective is really vital for that. So that's another example of why in diplomacy, I think emotional intelligence is really important. In terms of my journey, I guess, I've always been interested in both sides. So I studied physics and philosophy at university. But when I started my career and I started working for a consultancy in technology space, I definitely had a view that, work was about bringing rational arguments to the fore, and it is, and that the relationships you had at work should be quite sort of detached and separate from the rest of your life, and that you needed a clear separation. And over time, I guess I've gradually changed my view on that and come to the view that actually emotional intelligence is one of the key ingredients that you can bring as a successful leader, and that makes for a happier workplace and, in a way, less separation between home and work for everyone. And I've really been strengthened in my view of that over the last 5 years. And it's something I talk about quite a lot to colleagues, whether that's other women who are in my network of British ambassadors or other women within the fantastic network of ambassadors we have here. But I do think it's not just the sole preserve of women, but I think having more women coming into leadership roles is helping us collectively get a better understanding of that. So those were the main thoughts that I wanted to share with you this morning. I doubt that they are specific to diplomacy. I think many of these ideas cut across, so I hope it resonates with you. I expect that you, people with so much experience here, have your own and better experience of these issues. So if there's a chance to chat afterwards, I would love to hear about how that resonates. It's International Women's Day coming up on the 8th of March. Today we are mostly women, some men, but something I still struggle with in my professional life is the question of manels. Do you know what manels are? Yeah, I see Sasha nodding from the Managers Association. Manels are when you have a panel and it's all men and you want to have more women. And even organizations like mine who really committed to having more diversity, we struggle sometimes. So on the 8th of March, we are going to be co-hosting an event with IPES, a really novel and interesting NGO, to look at this, to look at why that is and how we can resolve it. In Imam She Eno Minuto, in jutri je slovenski kulturni praznik in danes sem naredila malo video, ker nažalost bo to zadnji kulturni praznik v mojem mandatu, zato sem razmišljala malo o učenju slovenščine in sem poskusila razložiti to na video. Je bilo malo težko in sem tudi razložila, da otroka sta se učila in vpliv za nas kot družino. Zato bom pustila kasneje na Twitterju, če imate čas, mogoče lahko vidite in bomo videli, če imam veliko napakov ali ne. Imam še dve. Sem poskusila razložiti, da učenje slovenščine je bilo težko. In to papir, slovnice, katastrofa na začetku. Ampak sem nadaljuvala in na koncu sem se zaljubila v slovenščino. Ja. Hvala.
What an amazing panel here. Not a manel. Never at the Women Economic Forum, though we had one very happily so, because we are inclusive. But really, this was a fantastic panel, and I thank each one of you for bringing your story. I know you said diplomacy was couched in secrecy, and then there is a stiffness around it because you really don't know whether I can say that or not say that. But all of you stepping out with your stories with so much transparency and truth really shows what happens. I think it's not diplomacy changing and women benefiting. I think it's women entering diplomacy benefiting. I think it's your effect. It's your effect of women entering the worlds of diplomacy that we see the softening of the edges and love taking over and, you know, taking off, rounding off the edges of the sharp-edged pebbles of any place, you know, we just take over. And I was just thinking that there are 5 countries represented on this panel and in this situation here today. Sasha, why don't you join us, please? I saw you come here. No, I wanted to make a point. It will help if you're here. So the point I wanted to make is, so you have a great colonial power, the United Kingdom, that's represented. You know, the UK came to India as well. So it's a great colonial power which in the previous ages has explored and reached out to the world. With rest is history, but I just want to say it's a great colonial power. Then we have the United States, which is a superpower of the now in many, many ways. And then we have Turkey from the great Ottoman Empire. I remember there was a graphic I read about women, about missions and diplomatic missions all over the world. And number one was Turkey. You have the greatest number of diplomatic and cultural missions all over the world. I remember I was in Sarajevo just for an evening, and I decided to just go to the bazaar, which was right behind my hotel. And I walked past, and in the bazaar, in the middle of the bazaar, I see one office, and it said Turkish Cultural Mission. I said, even here? See, everywhere. That's amazing. And then we are in Slovenia, which is a small country, but small has a big impact, especially when it's rooted in love, right? So Sasha is representing that, and I represent one of the most ancient continuous civilizations, India. So I was wondering maybe we should have some sort of a coalition here of countries which are continents in a way, in the sense of being so big and continuous and having a great civilizational impact, along with Slovenia, which is our wonderful, loving host here, and stay in touch and do some sort of a coalition of women in diplomacy led by these 5 countries and work towards our mission million. Just a thought there. I am doing my little bit of diplomacy. By the way, to your diplomacy, I just want to add somebody once told me, you do great dress diplomacy. So just because I wear these grand dresses at the events and people tend to notice like, who's she? So that's some little bit of my diplomacy to your various kinds of diplomacy that you mentioned as well. Thank you very much for opening your hearts to us and being here with your gracious presence. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Harbeen. To acknowledge the women that you are and for the aspirational work that you do every moment of every day, we'd like to offer a small felicitation from our hearts to you. Harbeen, Sasha, I invite you to come to the front. Calling upon Her Excellency Linda Blanchard to accept this honor as an exceptional woman of excellence at the Women Economic Forum in Slovenia 2020. Calling upon Her Excellency Esin Altug. You are indeed an exceptional woman of excellence. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for this legacy of a woman at the Women Economic Forum in Slovenia. Inviting Her Excellency Sophie Honey, British Ambassador to Slovenia, to accept this humble offering from our hearts to yours as an exceptional woman of excellence. Ladies and gentlemen, ladies, please come up. Please put your hands together, and I'd request you, please don't stop till we ask you to. So continue. Yes, yes. We need this energy. We need your radiance. Let me see. Let me find the non-clapping hands. We're coming for you. Yes. No, don't stop. Yes, good. Amazing. Thank you, ladies. Thank you. Of course.
I just wanted to add one thing. The greatest superpower on earth right now that I feel is the power of and energy of the women and females that pull together.
Wow. Thank you, Linda. And that was for you. So this from us right here, for you. You don't clap now, we do. Woo! You guys are amazing. Thank you. Thank you for your loving attention. And thank you, ladies, for bringing your beautiful journeys onto the stage to share with us all. Thank you. Thank you.
And may I add to this?
Yes, of course. Yes.
In Turkey, we do not have only brave women, but some brave men. Also from a very Turkish leading clothing brand. And when I saw his name on the participant list, I became really proud. Thanks.
So much for a journey around the world. We traveled to each continent. Are you good? Just checking because you're very quiet. Are you good? Good. Are you feeling the love? Okay, you're not. You're just saying it. Are you feeling the love? Oh, good. Okay, so because now we're going to play the hug game. You know what we're going to do? Because you said you're feeling the love, we're going to take a moment to find, okay, we're going to stand first for a second. Let's stand. Yeah, shake it up. Good. Wow, sitting too long. Okay, find someone on your left and give them a big fat hug. And you know what? It has to be at least 8 seconds for it to count. The endorphins don't kick in if it's under 8 seconds. It needs to be connected at the heart center. Okay, find someone on your right and give them a big fat hug. And don't stop. I'm timing you. 8-second hug. 8 second. Get back in it. Good. Look at that. That changes everything. Take a seat. Ladies, thank you. I love it. Once you get them started, there's no stopping them. Have a seat, my ladies. And the men. There you go. See, a lot can start with a hug. Oh, that's it. Later we'll play the game of hugging across the rooms. Good. Beautiful. For the next panel,